The movie starts with Edward acting in an awareness program. During the scene, his director stops him and gives him feedback on how to do it better. Edward follows the advice and performs as asked. Later, Edward and his co-star talk about their past work together. On the subway, people stare and laugh at Edward, making him uncomfortable. When he reaches his apartment building, a man stops him and encourages him to stay positive. As Edward walks upstairs, he sees a young woman moving into the apartment next to his. She looks scared when she sees him, but he doesn't say anything and goes into his apartment. Inside, he notices a leak in the ceiling and places a bowl under it to catch the dripping water. That night, Edward is watching a video and chopping onions when he hears a knock at the door. Startled, he accidentally cuts his finger. He quickly opens the door and finds his new neighbor standing there. She notices his bleeding hand and rushes to bring a first aid kit. She treats the cut and suggests he might need stitches, but does her best to help him. She also notices the leak in his ceiling and suggests fixing it. They start talking, and she introduces herself as Ingrid, mentioning she's from Olesen. Ingrid notices a photo of Edward and his mother and asks if it's really him in the picture. She also spots a typewriter and reads a piece of his writing. She tells Edward she's a playwright and asks if she's seen him in anything before. Edward says no. Before leaving, she asks to borrow some laundry detergent. In the next scene, Edward goes to see his doctor. The doctor tells him that because of his condition, he will start to lose his vision and some of his hearing. The doctor also mentions that Edward's friend has found an experimental drug that could help treat his condition and is looking for people like Edward to try it. The doctor suggests that Edward take the drug. After the visit, Edward heads back to his apartment and brings Ingrid a housewarming gift. She accepts it, and then a man appears at her door. They close the door, and Edward leaves. Later, Edward goes to an audition. He performs, but it doesn't seem to impress the people there, so he leaves. He then shows Ingrid a video of his acting. As she watches, she notices something about him, and he stops her before she can say anything. Ingrid then leaves for her apartment. Edward starts taking the experimental treatment for his condition. The doctor tells him to keep track of any side effects. Edward then goes to the nurse to get his bandage changed. The nurse doesn't even look at him and quickly changes the bandage. Edward returns to his apartment and finds detergent, chocolate, and a letter at his door. The letter is typed on the typewriter he gave to Ingrid. Later, while watching TV, he notices that his injured finger has completely healed. That night, while Edward is asleep, the police knock on his door. Before he can respond, someone appears and guides the police to another apartment. Edward follows and sees that a man has hanged himself. He watches as they take the body away from the building. The next day, while eating, Edward and Ingrid talk about the man who died. Ingrid asks Edward if he would ever think about killing himself, and he says, maybe. She notices his hand and asks about the bandage. Edward tells her it healed on its own. Ingrid talks about her job and how she dreams of becoming a writer. As they talk, a man walks by, stops to wave at Edward, and then leaves. Ingrid asks who the man is, and Edward says he doesn't know, adding that strange things like this happen to him all the time. At his apartment, Edward notices the ceiling leaking even more than before. When he checks it, a piece of the ceiling falls on his face. He realizes something strange is happening to his skin. Edward goes to see his doctor, who tells him it's nothing to worry about. The doctor explains that his body is healing itself very quickly and seems impressed by how well the drug is working. On his way back home, Edward suddenly feels sick and rushes into a nearby bar to use the restroom. The bartender stops him, saying it's for paying customers only. Edward buys a drink, and while he's sitting there, a man comes up to him, insisting that he knows Edward but can't remember. Over the next few days, Edward's face heals so quickly that he starts looking young and very handsome. When he returns to the bar, the bartender doesn't recognize him. Edward has a great time at the bar before heading back to his apartment. The next morning, a plumber shows up to fix the ceiling. Edward tells him someone else must have called because he didn't. Later, the doctor visits Edward's apartment, but doesn't recognize him. The doctor asks if Edward lives there, and Edward introduces himself as Guy, claiming to be a family friend of Edward's. He tells the doctor that Edward has died and was cremated. As they talk, Ingrid overhears the conversation from behind her door. A few days later, Guy starts a new job as a real estate agent. His coworker congratulates him and suggests he change his name, but Guy refuses. One day on the subway, Guy sees Ingrid walking and decides to follow her. She goes to an audition house, and he follows her inside. Ingrid notices him and asks who he is. Instead of answering, Guy decides to audition for a role. However, he doesn't perform well and realizes the script is based on Edward's life. Later, Guy returns to the audition wearing a mask that looks like Edward. He performs a scene that reenacts the emotional moment between Edward and Ingrid. Touched by his performance, Ingrid approves of him for the part. At the bar that night, Ingrid asks Guy about his first audition and why he came back. Guy explains that he used to have a friend named Ronnie who was a lot like Edward, wanted to honor his friend by coming back for the role. Guy then asks Ingrid why she wrote the story. She tells him it's based on her life and that she's deeply connected to Edward. She says she wants someone who looks like him for the role. Later, they go back to Ingrid's apartment. While they're talking, someone knocks on the door. Ingrid goes to answer it, and Guy sneaks into her bedroom. There, he finds strange photos of people with rare conditions. Ingrid catches him, and they scare each other before they start kissing. The next day, at the audition house, a man named Oswald shows up asking about the audition. He sees Guy and realizes the role is already taken. Oswald thanks them and leaves. Both Ingrid and Guy are shaken by the encounter and how much Oswald resembles. That night, they end up getting closer and make out. At a bar, Oswald shows up and sees Guy with his co-workers. Oswald tells them that Guy is playing a character named Edward. Guy brushes it off, saying it's just a role. His co-workers tease him about it. Feeling awkward, Oswald apologizes and leaves. In the next scene, Guy and Ingrid argue about the storyline of the play. Suddenly, Oswald appears and gives Guy a hug. Ingrid invites Oswald to stay and watch the rehearsal, and he agrees. Later, at the bar, Oswald seems upset about how the play ends. Ingrid compliments his accent and suggests that Edward's character should have it too. That night, Guy asks Ingrid why she's making changes. She says Oswald's idea makes sense, and she's rewriting the script, but only if Oswald agrees to it. Guy points out he suggested the same thing earlier, but she doesn't listen. During the next rehearsal, Guy performs the part, but no one seems happy with his acting. Later, Guy meets Oswald at a park near the Lincoln statue. At the bar, Guy notices that Oswald knows a lot about how the play is going and realizes he's been in touch with Ingrid. That evening, Oswald surprises everyone by singing in the bar, drawing attention with his performance. In the next scene, Ingrid agrees with Guy and Oswald that the story shouldn't end tragically. She suggests that Edward's character transforms into a handsome man at the end. Oswald jokes that the handsome man should be him. When Guy asks why the same actor can't play both parts, Ingrid says she wants Oswald to play Edward. Oswald agrees, but only if Guy gets a role in the play too. Everyone tries to convince Guy, but he leaves the set upset. The play continues, with Oswald playing Edward. At the bar, a man compliments Oswald's acting to Guy, which annoys him. Guy becomes even more frustrated when he sees Ingrid and Oswald laughing and getting closer. Guy tries to confess his feelings to Ingrid, but she tells him that Oswald is moving into Edward's old apartment. Angry, Guy tries to break into the apartment, but the plumber stops him. Frustrated, Guy starts wearing the Edward mask everywhere, annoying everyone, and eventually quits his job. During a performance, Guy tries to attack Oswald on stage, but ends up injuring himself instead. Feeling guilty, Oswald and Ingrid take care of Guy in their apartment, while they enjoy their own lives together. As Guy slowly recovers, he attacks someone who insulted Ingrid. This act leads to Guy being arrested and sent to jail. After finishing his sentence, Guy returns to the city. While walking down the street, Oswald sees him and gives him a big hug. They go to a restaurant together and talk about their lives. During the conversation, Guy realizes how much time he has wasted and notices how happy Oswald and Ingrid are with their lives. At the end of their talk, Oswald jokes that Guy hasn't changed at all, and they both laugh. The end. Thanks for watching. Please do like and subscribe our channel for more videos.